thing off the ground just because I've just have been having difficulty with OBS, but um basically I am back to fresh from the theater to give my insight and what my impressions were of the werewolves movie. So, all right, looks like everything is coming in good. I gotta admit that was a brisk 90 minutes. I was shocked about how quickly the movie went, but I am happy to report that I enjoyed it. I mean, it was good. It was okay. And it was yeah, it was a good watch. It wasn't anything spectacular, but didn't have to be, admittedly. Um, and yeah, it was okay. It was not spectacular. But it wasn't bland, it wasn't a slog to sit through, which I'm happy to report. A couple things. Watching this movie, I was amazed because I had never considered how moonlight, I mean, obviously there's no vampires in this movie, but I'd never considered before watching this movie that um whereas vampires would actively attempt to avoid sunlight, werewolves are actively pursuing it, which plays into the movie. And I think that was an interesting twist and development. It just, I like, obviously I like uh films that try something different or make you think about the ingredients, like the telltale signs, the calling cards. This, what I'm referring to, is in here, the moonlight. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was interesting. And it's something that I would like to see explored more. I just imagined, whereas vampires chasing down prey in the deep tunnels of the sewers, just when the humans manage to get topside, while the vampires are in pursuit, the vampires have to stick to the shadows. As opposed to that, um werewolves would actively, walk into the moonlight, maybe to heal, or maybe to enhance their senses, you know what I mean? um so I thought that was interesting. Something else that I thought was a boon for this movie is you would you would have, so, minor spoiler, although I guess the trailers kind of revealed this, or the plot synopsis. Um but people are like, everyone seems to be infected by this um genetic alteration where anyone stepping into the moonlight would turn. So the scientists, I like that it wasn't just generic experiments. I expected it to be, trying to find some kind of military application for the werewolves. I like that that wasn't the case, and also that, because, it can become really cheesy and repetitive when you have vampires put on tanning lotion and they were able to walk in the sunlight like they did in Blade. But here they're attempting to use something that they call moon screen as opposed to sunscreen in order, oh, excuse me. Sorry. They use something called moon screen in order to protect them from the effects of the lycanthropy from the moonlight. I would have gone with silver screen, but that's just me. Um, so at first it's working, but then later on it only has an effective time frame of an hour, which I thought was also interesting because that kind of adds a level of tension, because anyone that has like a vaccine with them, or more of the moon screen, they would need to be able to apply it within an hour. You know what I mean? So it would add that extra layer of tension to any survivors that have to contend with the moonlight, a ticking clock effect, as well as the werewolves in hot pursuit. Early on, when the experiment goes awry, there's really good use of strobe lights. I mean, that's such a time honored tradition, uh, uh, time and tested ingredient and application in horror movies. Um, and it wasn't the first time that they would um, homage. I don't think it was. Well, I don't know, to be honest, because I didn't look into too many of the director interviews. But if they were homaging Alien, it wasn't heavy handed, and it was done really well. Um, Speaking of the strobe light effect, this movie really does use tension in really solid ways. I'm referring to a scene where the two of the survivors need to run for cover, and it actually is very suspenseful as they're trying to, circumvent the werewolves that are feeding or just causing destruction. Um, and this was shown in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, but there's something of a street side shooting gallery, which, I mean, you do run the risk of, when you're attempting this, of quick cuts, you know what I mean, where you can't really see too much of the action, and it's hard to it's hard for the mind to register what the eyes are seeing, just because it can come off as frantic. But I thought that this was handled really well. And like, you couldn't tell whether the guy holding the machine gun, whether or not he is him and his surrounding soldiers are able to advance, or if they're just completely surrounded by lycanthropes. But I thought that was handled really well. And it really does come off as like just a shooting gallery. And even though you have something like a minigun, um the fact that these things are in the shadows and you can't see specifically where they are, where they're coming from, how many of them, uh while you would assume a level of safety from mowing down any obstacles in your way, or any threats on heading towards you. The interesting thing is that, as much as destruction as the minigun can cause, the way that this particular scene was shot, you don't know if they are able to advance and gain ground on the werewolves. Um, there was an interesting twist at the end, which I won't spoil, but it was too brief. Like, right when the action gets going, it kind of subsides and it resolves itself. Another kudos that I do have to give to this film is that the traps that were set for the werewolves, and how, in one particular scene, uh a level of intelligence, and just wickedness, like evil, is shown by the werewolves when they are let's just say testing the traps before them. And it reminded me of, in Jurassic Park, when the raptors were testing the fences. So my kudos to the director and the writer of the movie. um another plot point that the trailers revealed, that was shown in the movie. As I'm watching the film, I'm saying to myself, okay, so we know that they're going to be experimenting on test subjects, but I'm thinking to myself, it would be interesting if these were volunteers instead of people who were captured. Lo and behold, that's what happened. That's what the revelation is. These people had volunteered to for these experiments to be tested on, to find some kind of cure, repellent, or of just way of combating what it was that apparently the entire race of humanity was infected by. So I thought that was interesting. I wish that they would have like gone under the microscope more because I would like if someone took like a forensic take on werewolves and see just how even on a cellular level how monstrous they are. You know what I mean? Um Speaking of, there is one transformation in the lab that I won't spoil that was actually I thought it was handled pretty good. Um with a lot of the elements that I mentioned, I genuinely believe that this would make for a great video game. And specifically the moonlight aspect where humans you again you're reversing what you would expect from vampires because with vampires you would expect the prey to go out in search of sunlight whereas the monsters would avoid it. If you were to turn this into a video game and adapt the a lot of the elements and the lore that this movie used, you would have the reverse of what I just mentioned, where the prey is avoiding the moonlight, whereas not only can the werewolves circulate through it, but when they are looking to enhance their senses and especially their healing factor, they go out into the moonlight. So I think that would be interesting, as well as the lasting effect of the moon screen only lasting an hour. It would just be something an additional mechanic in a video game to in order for your players to keep their eye on. You know, an added layer of tension and survival tactics. Um, so there were some things that I did not like about the movie. They just have this one, and again, this was spoiled in the trailers. You got this one stereotypical redneck American, complete with his shooting gun. Like that, you know, if you have an entire year to prepare for these things, why are you doing target practice like the day of? And like, I mean, he's just such a stereotype. He's like I said, this guy's got to be an American. He's there shooting his American gun, touting America, and as he's doing his American shooting, he's right in front of American flag. It's like, dude, ah, like characters like that really are so heavy-handed, and they come off like comedic in whereas they're supposed to be taken seriously. And I always point to the bullies at the homophobic bullies at the beginning of It Chapter 2 and the bully character in Alien Romulus. It just becomes so stupid in the worst ways. It's not even amusing. Like if you're going to have a character like that, give some kind of depth to him. Like I think of the the gun-toting character from Tremors, who was if I'm like he's my favorite character from that franchise. Goomer, one of those names. Um, yeah, but if you're gonna have a character like that, make him amusing and give him like some kind of depth to it, because otherwise it just comes off really cartoonish. And he's yelling "oorah" and all. Oh, it looks just so stupid. Um, I this is not okay. This might be a low budget movie, but it's not what I would refer to as a B movie. When I think B movie, I think of camp and cheese, like that you know, with the over the top characters or an over the top premise that you know, it can be played like a ridiculous premise that can be played seriously. But no, this is just, you know, an action horror movie. It might be low budget, but it's not what I would consider B movie. And believe me, I would have no problem with that. I went into this theater expecting camp and cheese, and I was hopeful for it, but no, it's not that. I could have used more character development. Like, okay, you don't you if you're gonna go with the excuse me, with the action route, you can make these just more interesting characters that are, hey, if you want to go the badass route, good. Give them dialogue and how can I put it? Dialogue and scenes that paint them as badasses. But uh I don't, you know, they're pretty straightforward. There's no, I'm not expecting Shakespeare, but you know, there's no real one-liners except for one, which I'll get to. Ugh. And this was also in the trailers. Um, Yeah, I mean, there's no like '80s one-liners, and I'm not expecting them to like wink and nudge at the camera, but no, there's very little, little to no character development. There's one scene, and this is where Frank Grillo gets on the machine gun, cranks it back, getting ready to blow away some lichens, and then he goes, "Bite me." Cringe. Moving on. The sister-in-law was the weakest part of this movie. I guess she was supposed to be like the emotional core. Not so much. But she didn't distract from the movie, so I'll just move right on. I wasn't crazy about the design of the wolves. What you're seeing in the lower right-hand corner, which is the thumbnail for this video, yeah, that's what you see is what you get. I wasn't crazy about the snout. I don't like the hair sticking up. Um, and again, I know it's a B movie. I know they were on a budget, and I do commend them for practical effects. There is plenty of practical werewolves in this. I just would have hoped for something more signature, more something that stands out and is like how can I put this? The design is a signature of this movie. And I mean what I mean by that is like how the werewolf from American Werewolf in London, or the werewolves from Howling, or the werewolves from Underworld, like you wouldn't confuse any of them with any of the other movies I mentioned. They are their own thing. And they are their own thing, and they identify and clearly belong to those separate films. So I just wish that they had a better design. Um, and it wasn't too bad. The lankiness and the overall design of the head for the werewolves, but there were certain scenes where the neck, and I get that it's a guy in a suit, I get it. So the neck of the creature effect is really the head of the actor inside. And I get that. But there were certain scenes, certain shots where like the head just looked very disproportionate to the body, and not just a thick neck but a long one. So I hope that in future werewolf films we'll kind of like acknowledge that visually it's kind of distracting, and find ways to shoot around it or from certain angles where the neck doesn't look so thick and long. Pause. um but you know it would I wasn't a fan of the design, but they weren't bad, they weren't like piss poor, you know what I mean. um I would have liked to have seen a car chased by the werewolves. I would have thought that would have been cool. And also, this is my biggest gripe: more Katrina Law. That's what this movie needed. But no, I enjoyed the film. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, it wasn't trying to. It's a good action romp. It's a good little flick. And if they ever considered, I mean, hell, if Terrifier's getting a video game, I would be all for this movie getting a video game, and using the elements that I mentioned, the moonlight avoidance by your survivors, and the hour-long lasting moon screen for embedded tension. Um, but yeah, solid recommendation. I like this movie. I'm glad I got to see it. I'm glad that it was getting positive buzz, because I otherwise probably would have. I'm glad that it got positive buzz. I'm glad that the people who have seen this, the YouTubers, the critics, the reviewers, I'm glad that they liked it, were positively repping this movie, and I'm glad I got a theater release. So, that's my take on it. This was a nice little surprise at the beginning of the month, considering that we have Nosferatu to look forward to at the end of the month. And speaking what we have to look forward to, this is a pretty busy week for me. tomorrow I will be doing a overcast live screen of the Horror Game Award nominees. It'll be about an hour. I don't know because I'll be going into the gym in the morning. I figure mid-afternoon I'll do the live stream, and I'll be doing that in preparation for I believe Thursday. No, I'm sorry, next Saturday. So in 1 week, the Horror Game Awards will debut or premiere, and I will be making. I'll do a live stream of that as well on my channel. But that's next Saturday. Tomorrow will be the overcast for their nominees. Tuesday, I will not only be finally returning to doing the Mind Games live stream, but I will be opening the winter streaming warning, which is a 4-month long seasonal gaming event where I will be playing survival horror games that have a winter theme. So we're going to be kicking things off this Tuesday with Legacy of Kain remastered 1 and 2. So that's Tuesday. Thursday is the Game Awards, which I'm only watching to see what horror announcements are made. I'm not looking forward to their cringy representational participation awards. More like it. I'm just looking to see what horror, survival horror trailers they have. Friday will be a live stream of Dexter Original Sin. I'm really looking forward to that. And as I mentioned, the Horror Game Awards Overcast, I'll be streaming on my channel next Saturday. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you get to see Werewolves and enjoyed it as much as I do, if not more. I've been Inkarnate, reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.